In the cold void of space, where stars flickered like tiny embers, Captain Ilara sat at the helm of her starship, the Elysium. The ship cruised through the galaxy, its sleek metallic hull gliding silently, as if it were just another piece of debris in the vast expanse. Ilara, a seasoned leader, had seen countless worlds, met countless species, and explored mysteries that no human had ever dreamed of. Yet, in all her travels, one thing remained constant: her belief that humanity was nothing special. She had heard their stories, those tales of struggle and survival that humans love to tell. The stories of how they fought wars, how they pushed through the darkest times, and how they always managed to come out on top. But to Ilara, those were nothing more than stories, just myths and legends like the ones told on the ancient worlds she visited. She had heard it all before, from the mouths of countless human soldiers and explorers who claimed to be the heroes of their own sagas. They spoke of Earth's bloody past, of the battles fought against powerful enemies, of the pain and loss they endured. But to her, it was all just noise. Other species, far more advanced and ancient than humanity, had their own tales of glory and sacrifice. To Ilara, the humans were simply a species of survivors, nothing more. They had their place in the galaxy, but they were no different from any other race she had encountered. Ilara's mind wandered as she stared out the window of the bridge. The stars stretched out before her, so far away that it was hard to even comprehend their distance. She knew the importance of her mission, delivering important cargo to an allied colony, but her thoughts often turned inward. The loneliness of space had a way of making her question everything, even her own beliefs. Still, no matter how often she thought about it, her view of humanity remained unchanged. Then, on a quiet day in the middle of her journey, everything changed. The Elysium was passing through a dense asteroid field when something strange caught Ilara's eye: a flash of light from a nearby asteroid. At first, she thought it was just a reflection of the ship's engines, but as she looked closer, the light seemed to pulse in a rhythmic pattern. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she ordered the crew to investigate. The asteroid was unremarkable at first glance. It was a small, barren rock with no distinguishing features. But as Ilara's team approached, they discovered something odd: an ancient artifact embedded deep within the surface of the asteroid. It was a strange metallic object, unlike anything they had ever seen before. The surface of the artifact was covered in intricate symbols and patterns, some of which seemed to glow faintly. Ilara's instincts told her to stay cautious. She had encountered alien technology before, but this artifact was different. It hummed with a strange energy, a power that seemed both ancient and alien. The crew was hesitant, but Ilara ordered them to retrieve it. There was something about it that intrigued her, a curiosity she couldn't shake. As the artifact was brought aboard the ship, Ilara's thoughts turned to the humans once again. It seemed like the kind of thing that would fit perfectly in one of their ridiculous stories, an ancient relic of unknown origin, pulsing with power, found in the depths of space. She had heard 100 versions of such tales, but none of them had ever been true. This artifact, however, felt different. It didn't feel like a story. It felt real. The moment the artifact was brought into the ship's science lab, things began to go wrong. The lights flickered, and the ship's systems began to malfunction. Alarms blared, and the crew scrambled to understand what was happening. Ilara ordered the ship to stop and began to investigate the cause. But then, the unthinkable happened. The artifact began to glow brighter, its energy growing stronger by the second. Ilara stood frozen, unable to take her eyes off the glowing object. There was a hum in the air, a low, resonating sound that seemed to vibrate through the ship itself. The crew watched in awe and fear as the artifact's glow intensified. And then, with a sudden flash, the glow burst outward, engulfing the room in a blinding light. When the light faded, Ilara found herself staring at something impossible. There, in the center of the room, stood a man. He was dressed in simple clothes, but there was something about him that seemed out of place. He appeared human, but his eyes held a strange, almost otherworldly glow. His features were sharp, his face strong, yet there was a weariness to him that spoke of battles fought and lost. The crew gasped in shock, but Ilara was the first to recover. She stepped forward, her mind racing. The man, this human, looked like he had stepped straight out of one of the countless stories she had heard. But how could this be? How could a human appear out of nowhere, right here on her ship? "Who are you?" Ilara demanded, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. The man's eyes met hers, and for a moment, he seemed just as confused as she was. "My name is Kai," he said, his voice low but firm. "I come from Earth, and I'm here to tell you a story. A story you won't believe, but a story you need to hear." Ilara's heart skipped a beat. She had heard that phrase before, countless times from humans desperate to tell their tales. But something about the way Kai said it, with such conviction, made her pause. She wanted to dismiss him, to throw him out with the rest of the stories she had grown tired of, but there was something in his eyes that made her hesitate. The man from Earth, Kai, looked like he had been through a lifetime of hardship. His gaze was steady, but his posture suggested fatigue. There was a deep sorrow in him, a weight that pressed down on his shoulders. Ilara felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in years, curiosity. "You don't understand," Kai continued, his voice trembling slightly. "You think you know the stories of humanity, but you've only heard the surface. The truth is far darker, far stranger. And it's not just a story. It's real. I am real, and I've come to warn you." Ilara stood motionless, trying to make sense of what was happening. How was this possible? How could a human appear like this, as if out of thin air? She had heard stories, yes, but she had never believed in them. They were always just stories. Until now, her mind raced as she tried to comprehend the impossible. And then the question that had been on her mind since she first saw the artifact rose to the surface. What had she just unleashed? The artifact, the man, the glowing energy. It all pointed to something far bigger than anything Ilara had ever encountered. And for the first time in her career, she wondered if she had underestimated humanity far too much. The story of Kai, the man from Earth, was only beginning. And it was a story that would change everything she thought she knew about humanity. It was a story she would never forget. And the first question that filled her mind was no longer whether she could trust Kai. It was how much of his story was true, and how much of it would shatter everything she had ever believed about the human race. This opening part sets up the story, creates suspense, and introduces the mystery around Kai, ensuring the audience is engaged and curious to see how the story unfolds. As Ilara stared at the man who had suddenly materialized before her, her mind raced, struggling to comprehend the impossible. The crew, still in shock, remained silent as they watched the scene unfold. Ilara's thoughts churned like a storm inside her head. She had heard many stories in her lifetime, tales of legendary creatures, ancient wars, and lost civilizations, but nothing had ever prepared her for this moment. She had always dismissed human stories, convinced that they were nothing more than exaggerated tales spun by people desperate to feel important. But now, as she looked at Kai, the human from Earth, she began to wonder if those stories were more than just fiction. Kai's eyes were fixed on her, full of urgency. "I know this is hard to believe," he said, his voice steady despite the confusion in the room. "But you have to listen. What I'm about to tell you will change everything you know about humanity." Ilara narrowed her eyes, her skepticism still firmly in place. She couldn't let herself be fooled by the impossible. She had seen things in her career that defied explanation. But this was something else entirely. How could a human, a species she had dismissed as weak and insignificant, suddenly appear from nowhere? "What is this?" Ilara demanded, her voice sharp, demanding answers. "Who are you really? How did you get here?" Kai stood tall, his body weary but resilient. He opened his mouth to speak, then hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. "I'm Not supposed to be here. Not like this. But the artifact, it brought me back. I was lost. My world was lost. But we were never supposed to be forgotten. The room fell silent as Ilara processed his words. Lost, brought back. Her mind struggled to keep up, but she couldn't deny the strange sense of truth in his voice. He spoke with such conviction, and yet the disbelief gnawed at her. What are you talking about? What do you mean? Your world was lost. Kai's expression softened for a moment, as if the weight of his words was too much to bear. He seemed to gather himself before continuing. Earth was destroyed. At least that's what the rest of the galaxy believes. The stories say we were wiped out in a war we couldn't win. But the truth is, we fought. We fought harder than any of you could ever imagine. We didn't just survive. We turned the tide. And now I'm here to make sure you understand what humanity is capable of. Ilara's brow furrowed. She had heard all kinds of stories about Earth's past. She had heard about the wars and the devastation. But she had always dismissed those as the exaggerated stories of a species that clung to their past for meaning. So, you're saying that Earth didn't just die? That somehow, you won? Kai nodded slowly. Not just that. We didn't just survive. We won, but not without sacrifice. We lost so much. Our people, our home. But the thing is, we found something that made it possible to keep fighting. And that's why I'm here now. To warn you. You think humans are weak. You think we're just a passing species, a footnote in the history of the universe. But we're not. We never were. Ilara shook her head, still trying to grasp what he was saying. She wanted to reject it, to tell him that it was all nonsense. But something inside her, something deep in her gut, told her to listen. She had spent years exploring the stars, encountering species with unimaginable power, but she had never met anyone like this human. Why are you telling me this? Ilara asked. Why now? What does it have to do with me? Kay's eyes darkened as he stepped closer. Because you're the key. The artifact that brought me here. It's not just a relic. It's a piece of something much bigger, something that could change the galaxy forever. And if we don't act fast, it will fall into the wrong hands. Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. The artifact, the strange energy, the visions of Earth she had started to see. Everything was connected. But how could she, a captain of a starship, be involved in something so grand? And why had she been the one to find this artifact? This artifact, Ilara said slowly. How does it work? What does it do? Kay's face tightened with emotion. The artifact is more than just technology. It's a key, one that can unlock a power so great it could reshape the entire galaxy. The human race found it when we were on the brink of extinction. It gave us the power to fight back, to win the war that everyone thought was lost. But it's not just for humanity. It can give anyone who possesses it unimaginable power. And that's why we have to stop the others from getting their hands on it. Ilara felt a rising sense of dread. The weight of his words settled heavily on her shoulders. This was bigger than anything she had ever dealt with. She had always been a skeptic, always dismissed the human stories as just that, stories. But now, with Kai standing before her, with the artifact glowing faintly in the background, she was starting to understand that those stories were not just myths. They were warnings. I don't understand, Ilara said, her voice barely a whisper. Why me? Why did it choose me to find this artifact? I'm just a captain on a routine mission. This isn't my fight. Kay's gaze softened, as if he could sense the fear and doubt that had taken root in her. Maybe it's because you're not just a captain. You're someone who can see beyond the surface. You might not believe in human stories, but you'll believe in what we can do when we're pushed to the edge. Ilara took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Her mind spun with questions, with fears, with a growing sense of responsibility. She had always prided herself on her logical, calculated approach to everything. But this was something beyond logic. This was something she couldn't control, something she couldn't explain. The crew had gathered around the doorway, watching the exchange between their captain and this strange human. Ilara knew they were just as confused as she was. They had always trusted her decisions, but this time, she wasn't sure what the right choice was. "Okay," she said finally, her voice steady. "I'll listen to your story. But if this is some kind of trap, if you are lying to me, I'll have you thrown into the brig. Do you understand?" Kai nodded, his expression serious. "I understand. But I'm not lying to you. You'll see for yourself. I'm not here to deceive you. I'm here to make you understand." The room fell silent once again, the weight of what had just been said hanging in the air like a thick fog. Ilara's heart raced as she looked at the artifact, then at Kai. This was only the beginning of something far bigger than anything she could have ever imagined. And despite every instinct telling her to turn back, to reject the impossible, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that she was already too far into this mystery to back out now. Kai's story was just beginning, and for the first time in her career, Ilara felt a flicker of doubt about everything she had ever known. Perhaps the stories weren't so far-fetched after all. The human race wasn't just a footnote. They were something more. And Ilara was about to find out just how much more. This second part expands on the suspense and mystery of Kai's arrival, drawing Ilara deeper into the story. It also sets up the larger conflict and the challenges she will face as she learns more about humanity's true strength. The days following Kai's arrival were a blur of confusion and uncertainty for Captain Ilara. The ship's crew was on edge, their eyes constantly drifting toward the man from Earth. They had all heard the stories about humanity. Tales of survival against impossible odds, of wars and losses. But now, standing before them, was someone who claimed to be living proof of those stories. Ilara had once dismissed them as exaggerated, but Kai was no ordinary human. There was something about him that felt different. In the beginning, Ilara kept her distance, questioning everything he said. His story of Earth's destruction, of the wars that nearly wiped out humanity, seemed impossible. The Earth she had heard about, the Earth in the galaxy's records, was nothing but a distant, almost forgotten place, a relic of the past. To her, humanity's battles had always been just part of the history books. But Kai's eyes told a different story. There was a depth to his gaze, a pain in his voice that hinted at a lifetime of experiences she couldn't begin to understand. Days turned into weeks as Ilara tried to get to the bottom of what was happening. The artifact, which had brought Kai to life, was still on the ship, locked away in the science lab. Ilara ordered constant monitoring, but no one could explain its strange power. It wasn't like anything she had ever seen. The energy it emitted was erratic, pulsing with an intensity that made her uneasy. And then, there were the visions. Every time Ilara passed by the artifact, she would see flashes of images, visions of Earth, of massive cities burning, of dark skies filled with smoke. She would hear echoes of screams, of voices calling out in despair. The images would come and go in an instant, leaving Ilara shaken, her mind struggling to comprehend what she had just witnessed. She knew it wasn't just her imagination. The artifact was somehow connected to these visions. But how? One evening, as she walked through the corridor near the lab, she found herself face to face with Kai. He was standing by the door, his hands resting on the cold metal as if he were waiting for her. His eyes met hers, and there was a quiet intensity in them that made Ilara pause. "I know what you're thinking," Kai said, his voice low and calm. "You want to understand what happened. You want to know how Earth survived, how we won. You want to know how I'm standing here before you." Ilara crossed her arms, her gaze sharp. "I don't understand any of it," she admitted. "I've seen the records, the history. Humans fought wars, yes. But how could you survive when the rest of the galaxy thought you were dead?" Kai's expression softened. It wasn't just survival. We fought back with everything we had. Our will to live, our ingenuity, and yes, the artifact. It's what kept us alive when all hope seemed lost. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. But it wasn't just about survival. It was about something more. Something that you can't even begin to imagine. Ilara felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Kai hesitated for a moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. The artifact. It wasn't just a tool. It was the key to unlocking a power that humans never knew they had, the power to change everything, to push back the darkness. And that's why I'm here. I have to make sure the galaxy understands what we're capable of. Because if the wrong hands get hold of this power... His voice trailed off, and for the first time, Ilara saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. "What wrong hands?" she pressed. "Who else knows about this artifact?" Kai looked away, his jaw tightening. There are forces out there, alien factions, that have been watching humanity for centuries. They believe that we're a threat, that we have the potential to rise and challenge their dominance. And if they get their hands on this artifact, they'll use it to wipe out everything humanity has fought for. Ilara's heart raced. The implications of what Kai was saying were staggering. If the artifact could really unlock such power, then it wasn't just a relic. It was a weapon. And if someone else discovered it before she did, there was no telling what could happen. "You're telling me that the whole galaxy is afraid of humanity?" Ilara asked, incredulous. Why would anyone fear a species that's barely a blip in the vastness of space? Kai looked at her, his eyes full of the weight of centuries of history. "You don't understand. Humanity is more than just a species. We've learned to adapt, to survive, to fight when the odds are stacked against us. We have the potential to be something greater. And the galaxy knows that. That's why they fear us." Ilara shook her head, still struggling to process everything. "So, you're telling me that the human race isn't just a footnote in galactic history? That there's more to you than we thought?" Kai nodded. "Yes, we are more. But that's why I need your help. The artifact brought me here for a reason. You may not believe in human stories, but I need you to see the truth. The galaxy is about to face something it's never seen before, and we, humans, are at the center of it." As Kai spoke, Ilara's mind raced. She had always prided herself on her logical approach to situations, her ability to separate myth from reality. But now, standing in front of her, was a man who defied everything she had believed. The power that Kai spoke of, the ancient artifact, it was all real. And it was far beyond anything she could have imagined. The pieces were starting to fall into place. The artifact, the strange energy, the visions, it was all connected. And Ilara realized that she had underestimated humanity for far too long. "Okay," Ilara said, her voice steady but filled with a new resolve. "What do we do next?" Kay's eyes brightened, a flicker of hope sparking in them. "We have to find out where the artifact came from. We have to understand its true purpose before the galaxy's enemies do. Because if they find it first, everything humanity fought for will be lost." Ilara nodded slowly. She knew that she couldn't turn back now. She had always believed in the strength of logic, of science, but this was something different. She had to see this through, for her crew, for humanity, and for the future of the galaxy. As Ilara walked away from the conversation, her mind was still reeling. The vision of Earth, of the burning cities, the voices echoing in her head. It all seemed so real now. She didn't know what the future held, but one thing was certain. Whatever happened next, the human race was about to change the course of history, and Ilara would be at the heart of it. She just hoped she was ready. This third part delves deeper into Kai's backstory, revealing more about the artifact's power and its significance in the galaxy. The tension builds as Ilara starts to realize the true scope of what's at stake. The weeks passed in a haze of activity aboard the ship. Ilara couldn't shake the growing sense of urgency that had taken root within her. The artifact, still locked away in the science lab, pulsed with an energy she could feel even from a distance. The visions continued. Fleeting glimpses of Earth in flames, cities destroyed. human soldiers standing against impossible odds. They were always so vivid, so real, as if the artifact was calling to her, showing her pieces of a past that she could barely understand. Kay's presence on the ship had shifted from being an oddity to a source of fascination. The crew was still skeptical, but there was no denying the truth in his eyes. He had seen things that no one else could comprehend, and his words carried a weight that Ilara couldn't ignore. Humanity's past was far more complicated, more powerful than she had ever imagined. And now it was up to her and her crew to make sense of it. Kai had become a shadow at Ilara's side, his every action calculated, his every word measured. The more she interacted with him, the more she realized how much he had sacrificed. His home, his people, his entire world, just to survive. She had always believed that humans were just like any other species, weak, fragile, and easily broken. But with every conversation, every story he shared, Ilara began to see humanity in a new light. Their resilience, their ability to adapt and fight when all hope seemed lost, it was something she had never truly understood until now. One evening, as the ship sailed through the deep void of space, Ilara sat alone in her quarters, looking out at the distant stars. The artifact was on her mind again. It was almost as if it were calling to her, urging her to understand its purpose. She had never felt this kind of pull toward anything before, and yet here she was, drawn into a mystery far bigger than she could have ever imagined. The door to her quarters slid open, and Kai stepped inside, his face serious, but his eyes soft. "I need to talk to you," he said, his voice low and urgent. Ilara turned from the window, her heart skipping a beat. "What is it?" "I've been doing some research," Kai said, taking a step closer, "and I think I figured out where the artifact came from. It's not just a relic from Earth's past. It's much older. And it's tied to something bigger, something that could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy." Ilara's curiosity piqued. "What do you mean? What's bigger than the artifact?" Kai hesitated for a moment, as if weighing the significance of what he was about to reveal. The artifact, it was created by a long-lost civilization, a race that existed long before humans, before any of the species we know today. They were the ones who first unlocked the kind of power that the artifact represents. They used it to shape the galaxy, to control entire systems, but in the end, they were destroyed by their own creations. The artifact is all that remains of their technology. Ilara's brow furrowed. "So you're telling me that humanity is connected to an ancient civilization?" "How?" Kai nodded. "Humanity was chosen. The artifact wasn't just left behind for any species. It was left for us. It's why we survived the war, why we were able to push back when all seemed lost. We were the ones meant to carry this power. But it's not just about the artifact. It's about what it represents, humanity's potential to rise, to become something more than anyone ever thought possible." Ilara felt her pulse quicken. She had always thought of humanity as a small, fragile species, easily forgotten in the grand scheme of the galaxy. But now, hearing Kai's words, something shifted within her. Humanity wasn't just a footnote in history. They were a force to be reckoned with. "If what you're saying is true, then we need to act quickly," Ilara said, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "If other factions are looking for the artifact, then we can't waste any time." Kay's eyes darkened. "That's the problem. The factions are already closing in. There are rumors, whispers of an alliance of alien species who want to claim the artifact for themselves. They've been searching for it for years, and now that they know it's out there, they won't stop until they find it." Ilara stood up, her mind racing. "We have to find it first. We can't let them have it. Not after everything you've told me." "I agree," Kai said, "but there's one more thing you need to understand. The artifact isn't just a weapon. It's a key that unlocks the next phase of human evolution. The power it holds is beyond anything you or anyone else can imagine. But it's also unstable. If it falls into the wrong hands, it could destroy everything. Ilara's heart skipped a beat. You mean, it could destroy the galaxy? Kay's expression was grim. Not just the galaxy. It could destroy reality itself. The artifact is tied to forces that are beyond comprehension. If the wrong people get hold of it, they could unleash chaos on a scale we can't even begin to understand. The weight of his words hit Ilara like a tidal wave. The stakes were higher than she had ever imagined. She had always thought of her mission as just another routine assignment, but now she understood that this was much more than that. This was a battle for the future of the galaxy and humanity's place in it. We have to stop them, Ilara said, her voice firm. We can't let the artifact fall into the wrong hands. We have to find it, secure it, and make sure no one else can use it. Kai nodded. We will, but we need to act fast. The factions are closing in, and the longer we wait, the harder it will be to keep the artifact out of their reach. Ilara took a deep breath, her mind racing as she made the decision. She knew this was no longer just about the artifact. It was about the future of humanity, and the future of the galaxy itself. She couldn't back down now. Prepare the crew, Ilara said, her voice resolute. We're going after the artifact. We'll do whatever it takes to keep it safe. As Kai left her quarters, Ilara stared out at the stars once more, her thoughts swirling. She had no idea what challenges lay ahead, but she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't the same person she had been before. The human race had always been underestimated, always thought of as weak. But now, with the artifact in their grasp, humanity was about to prove that they were capable of far more than anyone had ever believed. Ilara didn't know what the future held, but she knew that whatever happened, she would stand by humanity, no matter what. The artifact was more than just a relic. It was a symbol of humanity's strength, and it was up to her to protect it. This fourth part dives deeper into the conflict, setting up the high stakes and tension surrounding the artifact. Ilara's understanding of humanity and the artifact's true significance grows, as does the urgency of their mission. The crew of the ship was ready. Every person aboard had a part to play in the dangerous mission that lay ahead. But for Captain Ilara, the stakes had never been higher. The artifact was more than just a relic. It was the key to humanity's future, and it was now the target of every power-hungry faction in the galaxy. The rumors were true. The alien coalition was closing in on it, and time was running out. Ilara stood at the command center, looking at the holographic map of the galaxy. She had never seen the galaxy like this before. Every sector was now a potential battleground, a place where factions could fight to claim the artifact, and with it, control over the future of humanity. The coordinates to the artifact's location had been discovered. It wasn't far, but getting to it would be a race against time, and every second counted. Captain, we're ready for launch. Commander Ryland's voice cut through her thoughts. He stood at the controls, his eyes fixed on the screen, awaiting her command. We've gathered everything we need for the mission. The crew is ready. Ilara nodded, her mind focused. Good. Let's make sure we're prepared for anything. No mistakes. The crew had been briefed on their roles. Security officers would be on high alert, ready for any attacks from rival factions. The science team would be on standby, ready to assist with any analysis of the artifact. And the rest of the crew would assist with the mission's logistics. There was no room for failure. Kai had remained close by, offering advice when needed, his knowledge of the artifact's true nature more valuable than anything the crew could have learned from their own research. Ilara still wasn't sure what to make of Kay's full story. Was he truly the last of his kind? Or was there something more? But for now, those thoughts had to be set aside. The artifact was the priority, and if they didn't secure it, everything was at risk. As the ship moved into hyperdrive, Ilara couldn't help but glance at Kai, who stood near the observation window, his eyes fixed on the vast expanse of stars. She couldn't deny the unease she felt when she looked at him. There was something about him, something powerful, but also deeply tragic. He had seen humanity at its worst, and yet despite everything, he still believed in their potential. "We're almost there." Kai's voice broke her from her thoughts. He turned to face her, his expression intense. "The closer we get, the more dangerous it becomes. The factions will be aware of our approach. We can't afford to underestimate them." Ilara didn't answer immediately. She couldn't afford to let her emotions cloud her judgment. This was bigger than just a single ship, bigger than the fate of one crew. The artifact was connected to something ancient, something that had the potential to reshape the galaxy. The thought of falling into the wrong hands was too terrifying to ignore. "We'll be ready," Ilara said, her voice steady. "We've come this far, and we're not backing down now." Kai nodded, but there was a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "You don't understand. The artifact isn't just a tool. It's a weapon. And if it's activated, if it reaches its full potential, no one will be able to stop what comes next." Ilara raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean by that?" "You're saying the artifact could be more dangerous than we think." Kai's gaze was intense, as though he was seeing something far beyond the walls of the ship. The artifact was created by a race that was far more advanced than anything we can imagine. They unlocked the power of creation itself. It's not just a weapon of destruction. It's a weapon that could shape reality. It could alter the fabric of the universe, if it falls into the wrong hands. If it's misused, it could undo everything. Ilara's heart skipped a beat. She had suspected the artifact was dangerous. But this was something else entirely. The implications were staggering. The power to reshape the universe itself was unimaginable. If the factions got their hands on it, there would be no stopping them. The galaxy could fall into chaos, beyond repair. "We can't let that happen," Ilara said, her voice quiet but filled with a determination that only grew stronger. "We have to get to the artifact before anyone else does." Kai's eyes softened. "I know you understand the gravity of this, Captain. But there's something else you need to know." He paused, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The artifact wasn't just left behind for humanity. It's been waiting for you. Waiting for someone with the strength to wield it." Ilara was taken aback. "What do you mean, waiting for me?" Kai met her gaze, his eyes intense with meaning. "You were chosen, Captain. The artifact recognizes you. You have a connection to it. It's why you were able to understand its power so quickly. The galaxy's future rests on you, and on humanity." Ilara's mind raced. She had always thought of herself as just another officer in the vast machinery of the universe. But now, Kai was telling her something completely different. She had a purpose in this mission, something far bigger than her own survival or the safety of her crew. It was the future of humanity itself that was at stake. The ship emerged from hyperdrive, and the coordinates came into view. The artifact's location was now just a few short hours away. But as they entered the sector, Ilara's heart sank. She could see the other ships, massive warships bearing the insignia of rival factions. They were already there. The race was on. "Captain, we've been detected," Commander Ryland shouted from his station. "They've locked onto us. We're surrounded." The tension in the room exploded. The crew scrambled into action, preparing for the inevitable conflict. Ilara's mind raced as she took in the situation. There was no time to hesitate. They would have to fight their way to the artifact, or die trying. "Prepare for battle," Ilara ordered, her voice steady despite the pressure. "All hands to their stations. We fight to secure the artifact." As the battle raged around them, Ilara felt a strange sense of calm settle over her. This was the moment she had been preparing for, the moment humanity's true power would be tested. She wasn't just fighting for herself, or for the crew. She was fighting for the future of the galaxy, for the very survival of everything they held dear. The ship rocked as enemy fire pounded against their shields, but Ilara remained focused. She could feel the artifact calling to her, its presence resonating in her very being. There was no turning back now. Humanity was on the edge of a new dawn. Whether they would rise or fall depended on what happened in the next few moments. She turned to Kai, who was standing beside her, his face grim but determined. "Ready?" she asked. Kai nodded, his expression unwavering. Always. Together, they would face the unknown. Together, they would secure humanity's place in the galaxy. This fifth part culminates in a battle for the artifact, with the crew of the ship racing against rival factions to secure it. The stakes are higher than ever, and Ilara's connection to the artifact is revealed as she embraces her role in humanity's future. The tension builds as the final conflict begins, setting the stage for the resolution.